Yes, hello, brothers and sisters, and welcome to the breakdown. My name is Amayanja Fazil. Today, I'm going to look at a topic that I've been longing to look into, and I didn't have enough resources and I hadn't made enough research. But when I dug a wee bit quite deeper, I feel that I've found enough information to dig deep into this particular individual or to deal into this particular situation, break it down for you so that you can really understand what is actually going on. Now, um, before I get into it, by the way, please endeavor to subscribe and share the video and, all those sorts of things that help the channel to grow and that help other people to find this particular information. Now, there's this lady known as Dr. Diana Atwiine. I must have talked about her briefly in an episode about Dr. Ruth Acheng. But this lady is a very interesting figure in Museveni's crime empire because Museveni is literally a mafia. It is like a mafia family. Like those American mafias, the Italian mafias, the Jewish mobs, and all that kind of stuff. I think Museveni fits into that, if not worse. So the Museveni crime family, Dr. Diana Atwiine, is their sort of physician, or their sort of doctor, like in case anything goes wrong. But when I dug deep into Dr. Diana Atwiine, it's quite interesting. Now, before I get into this topic, I want you to all understand that I'm not against anyone if they are qualified to be given a particular position in the government, for as long as signs of nepotism, tribalism are not exhibited in these particular in these particular appointments, as well as contracts and things of that sort. Now, the story of Diana Atwiine is very interesting because Diana Atwiine is one of those people who are within Museveni's circles. And when I was researching this topic, I realized that since her childhood, she has been under the arms of Museveni. Literally, she's their kind of adopted daughter, and she was under the she was raised, let me say, by Janet Museveni herself. And when you are looking at the Museveni crime family, I recently discussed three types of categories of people. We have the category of Museveni. If you are in Museveni's category, you are replaceable. You're likely to be kicked out in one way or the other. Now you have the Janet category. That is the wife to Museveni. Now that's a very powerful category. Like, all women, women control us in this world, and so do dictators. So if Janet says something, it looks like she can literally save your ass if you're in the crime empire. But if there are people that Museveni doesn't want, but Janet wants them, Museveni will keep them. There are people, if Janet doesn't want them, but Museveni loves them, Museveni will drop them. So that's how things operate. And so it creates some sort of friction in the state. That's why you see, you also have under the Janet establishment, of course, you can find people like this lady that I'm going to talk about today, Diana. You can find people like Edwin Karujire, the so-called son-in-laws, the Karujire family members. You can find the Odrek Rabogo, and so on and so forth. I'll come and break it down, this crime empire. But then you also have this issue of people like Muhoozi Kainerugaba. Now, Muhoozi also has his own sort of thing. Now, Museveni has total control over Muhoozi's actions, like it or not. So Muhoozi cannot literally save anyone's ass. Sorry for my language, but that's the best way I can approach. Sorry for the language. So Muhoozi cannot save anyone's backside if at all Museveni wants them out, right? But Muhoozi can sneak in his own appointments and think people he wants to work with in one way or the other. An example is when Kabushenga reached out to Muhoozi to help him to talk to Museveni in order to retain him as the CEO of New Vision. But then Muhoozi said, what's done is done. There's nothing I can do about it. So if Kabushenga was under the armpits of Janet, trust me, Kabushenga would still be in that position. We also we see individuals like Frank Tumwebaze is also under Janet and all this kind of stuff. All right, enough of the semantics. Let's get into the topic today. Now, Diana Kanzira Atwiine, when you go on the internet and try to research about this lady, there isn't so much information that you can find. Now, let us dig into it and show you, and I show you what I actually mean when I say that it's not easy to find information about the lady. Now, and trust me, if I say that, trust me, like, just know that I've done the research. I've done everything I can to dig and dig and dig deep, looking for connections all over the place. How is she connected here? How does she get into State House? What is the background? Now, when I was, of course, the first page you land on researching Diana, Madame Diana, Dr. Diana, it is the Wikipedia page. And now Wikipedia page is some sort of a sanitized page. For those of you who don't know, she's the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Health. But she's more like the de facto Minister of Health. So she has two positions, literally. You have Ruth Acheng on one side, who doesn't call any shots, just there to fill the spaces, and also just to get allowances and all that kind of stuff. But now Diana Atwiine is very interesting. When you look at her so-called Wikipedia, it shows Galilaya Kayunga, Mbarara University. That's where she went for her first degree, and then she did a master's in internal medicine and that kind of stuff. Permanent secretary, known for knowledge. Spouse is Mr. Kanzira. Now, Mr. Kanzira I don't want to involve him. Those are personal things because he hasn't done anything. But this one holds public office, so that's why she's under a lot of strict scrutiny from the breakdown. So, as you can see, you go and read these things and see her dad was Ernest Rujundira and Joy Kansheka Rujundira. She's the third born. And she went to Wera Nyanji, and then she went to Namagunga before she was admitted to Mbarara University of Medicine. Now, Mbarara, I'm going to do an investigation about it because it's a very interesting university and how people really get in. Now, this Mbarara University, and we're also going to get into these things. Now, she pursued a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery and that kind of stuff. Following that, she specialized in internal medicine and was awarded a Master of Medicine degree from the same university. She worked at St. Francis in Zambia. Then she joined the Joint Clinical Research Center, JCRC. From there, she went to State House, where she was given President's Private Secretary in charge of medical affairs, which is quite interesting. In that capacity, served as personal physician to Museveni. Now, from there, they started talking about her other job as the director of the Delivery Monitoring Unit in State House, which was a parallel unit that was supervising the Ministry of Health and all kind of stuff, wasting taxpayers' money. Then she uncovered all these cases, uncovered this illegal racket, uncovered this, recovered this, and such, and all this kind of stuff. Now, what I've realized in Museveni's crime empire, they will create scenarios in order to elevate a particular individual in a society to make justification for that particular person to take over a much higher post. By this lady uncovering all these kind of things that Dr. Diana Atwiine has uncovered this, has uncovered that, what they were doing is preparing her to take over the post of the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health. Now, that's enough of it. All those other achievements. I've been reading through articles on the internet, on several newspapers, and they all refer back to this, which is really interesting. Now, when the book that Dr. Mbonye wrote came out, I went into the book, read through the book, and of course, Diana's name surfaces a lot. So right now, I will take you back to Diana Atwiine in the eyes of Dr. Mbonye, the one who recently passed away, in his book. Now, we saw this paragraph last week, in a few episodes ago, but I'll read it again for you. Now, he says that earlier, the little known but very vicious Dr. Diana Atwiine had sought to capitalize on her closeness to the First Family, and I'm going to come to that, in order to ascend the hierarchy of the health sector, but without much success. At A level, she gained an E in chemistry, a B in biology, a D in physics, and a D in physics. In addition, she scored credit 3 in general paper and credit 5 in sub-maths, with a total of 12 points. Thus, it is rather surprising that she was admitted into a medical course with such low scores. Now, I know very many friends of mine that have done medicine. I think that's why they have medicine in Mbarara. Because in Makerere University, there is no way you could get medicine at 12 points. Like, I've literally seen people who did medicine in Makerere University, because that is the, it's the benchmark that we can use. It's the best university in the country. So if you go to MOOC and do medicine, literally, I mean, friends of mine who have done medicine at MOOC, you can let me know, please. Could you be admitted with 12 points at MOOC for medicine? You cannot. It is a tight niche group of individuals that, it is the people who have passed highly all over the country, 25 points and all kind of stuff, who get this particular course. But in Mbarara, she was able to get the course. Why? We shall come to that. Because she was connected definitely to the first family. And we are going to come to that straight out of the horse's mouth. That if you have access to Museveni and his first family, you can even get a degree in medicine with just 12 points. You can even get government sponsorship with little to no principal passes in your GCSEs or your A-level exams. Literally anything can happen if you have access to the Museveni crime family. Now, Dr. Ambonye says, in 2008, I met Dr. Diana Atwiine on a trip to Cape Town, South Africa, to attend a conference on cervical cancer organized by Princess Nikki from Nigeria. She was accompanying the First Lady, Miss Janet Museveni, to the same conference. It was the first time I had spoken with her. So the fact that Janet Museveni travels with Diana Atwiine, it means that there is a lot of closeness between these two. Now, Janet wouldn't just travel with anyone, literally no one, right? So by the fact that you travel with her, it means that, man, you are close. And it means that your position in the Museveni crime family is secure for now, for as long as you don't fall out with her. You get the point? So, now this is what is happening. After exchanging pleasantries, she began complaining about corruption in the health sector and poor service delivery. So they're at the conference, and all this kind of thing is happening. She's there with Janet, and then she's complaining about corruption and poor service delivery, of which the same institution Mbonye was part of, Asmani Rukago was part of, and other ministers. So it means that with these complaints, of course, she was complaining to Janet as well as complaining to Museveni. Janet complaining to Museveni, and then, as rumor go around. As a researcher, I inquired whether she had data to support her allegations. I didn't take these allegations seriously at the time, since I don't engage in discussions where no valid evidence is presented. Little did I know, however, that she had been spreading this discourse to justify her appointment as the director of the Health Monitoring Unit based at State House. Indeed, her strategy seems to have succeeded, and she was appointed its first director. So literally, they bring this lady on board, and then actually the position must have been created for her, because it's her that they wanted to be in that particular position, to use as a springboard to make her the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Health. And from that position, she's likely to become the Minister of Health in Uganda. And we all know that some of the biggest ministries that take a lot of money and a lot of donor money is the Ministry of Health. So whoever controls that ministry must be in the good books of Museveni and his crime family. Atwiine is believed to have successfully convinced Museveni that the health sector was rotten and that it was time to clean it up. Immediately after the 2011 elections, rumors began to circulate at the Ministry of Health headquarters one day that the acting medical superintendent of Lower, now we went through this of Jane Ruth Acheng and all this kind of stuff. So what literally happened was, not to waste so much of your time, this lady, Madame Diana Atwiine, doctor, she gets there, she succeeds. It's like a Game of Thrones. She succeeds in rubbishing and soiling everyone within State House. I mean, this is really funny. Not even funny, but it is really, quite interesting for me and as an outsider. So, and I'll get back to this, why it is important to us as individuals, especially Ugandans, why Ugandans should be very, very worried about such scenarios. So what happens here is that she succeeds. Dr. Asmani Lukwago is kicked out of the Ministry of Health, and then Diana Atwiine takes over as the least qualified, in fact, to take over, because so many people had done the interviews who could have taken over the position, but Diana Atwiine is the one who took it over. So how does this thing work? Diana Atwiine, let us first get into this particular interview. Who really is Diana Atwiine? What is her connection with the State House? And who is her real connection within the State House? Now, who is the best person other than Diana to tell us who she really is and how she gets all these fatty and juicy jobs in State House? Surely, and how she gets deep into the Museveni crime family. So here is Diana sitting on NTV, a program called Tuaye with Wausimbi, talking about how she got into State House and how she met Museveni and his entire crime family. So let us listen to this just briefly.
Yatuuka ku ggwanga lino nga taata wange bamaze okumutta ebintu byaffe byonna babinyaze Nakaseke. So olutalo nga luwedde, first lady taking over kubanga mama wange ayinako bw'abayita abamanyiiko. So bwekuvanga mu S2 nentandika okubeera nabo ne bandabirira kutuusa lwe namala. Kati bwe namala nengenda mu JCRS nentandika okukola mu Joint Clinical Research Center when nali naye nali nsambya for 1 year nenvaayo nenyenda JCRC naye we nava nampita nagamba jangu ojoininga team ekola wano naye neŋŋamba nze.
Okay, now for those of you who do not for those of you who do not understand what the lady was saying, because she was speaking in a local language known as Luganda, and I'm really impressed that she speaks eloquently the language, which is really funny. Not funny, but quite interesting, because she grew up in Nakaseke anyway, so that's expected. So she says that during the turbulent periods of Uganda, 60s, 70s, because she was born in 73, she says that her parents were killed in the war and all this kind of stuff. As the interview goes on, she gives out more information about herself. But when you look at the interview, she was hesitant to speak about her connection with the first family. Now, I'm going to show you why that is important. But first, she says that when the turbulent period happened, her parents were killed. And so Museveni and his family took her on, especially under the arms of the First Lady, Janet Museveni, caring for her as an orphan. Now, what that means is, she goes ahead to say that she was taken on as adopted, let me say, for lack of a better word, and they looked after her since from senior 2 until she finished university in Mbarara University, where she did a bachelor's in medicine. Now, when she finished a bachelor's in medicine, the First Lady, they got her a job in Zambia Hospital. Now, after that job, they also found her another job. As Ugandans, you're struggling. For her, she's perusing through, because there are so many orphans during that period, but I don't know of so many that are successful to this as she is. So she ends up in Joint Clinical Research Center, JCRC. Now, from the Joint Clinical Research Center, Janet Museveni looked at her and said now she's ready for her to be taken into the crime family, or to be taken into one of those people who they can rely on, or one of the people that they feel is ready to continue this generation of the Musevenis and all this kind of stuff. So they took her on, and she started working in State House as Museveni's personal physician. Now, trust me, there are so many things that happen in State House, but you cannot become Museveni's personal physician if at all you do not have the endorsement of Janet Museveni. So I'm trying to show you the power of the wife of the dictator. She also has she wields a lot of power. So by the time that she recommends her to be the personal physician, that's really interesting. So it means she has a lot of power, this lady. Diana Atwiine. So now what happens here is that that is where everything, all her life changes. But it looks like this lady was being groomed ever since they adopted her and took her on. Now the relation between Janet and Diana is that Janet is related to Diana's mom. That's how everything works out. Now, you should understand that Museveni recently said, before I get into that, but that is how these two get together. And that is how she enters the State House. And that is how they set up issues and things like that. And then they say, oh, Diana Atwiine is doing this. She's doing so well. She becomes the director of the health monitoring unit within the State House. And then she, whatever, gets so many other positions. And then she becomes the permanent secretary, the position she's in today as the Minister of Health, where she has been exposed and performed dismally. But from this position, we all understood that she was being prepared to take over the ministry. From my own analysis, she was being prepared to take over the Ministry of Health. And do not be surprised, anytime soon she might even run for office to become an MP or something of that sort. Now, to dig further, deeper, I was trying to understand Dr. Diana Atwiine, oh, this lady. So what I saw here was, now this correlates very... Okay, before I get into this correlation between Museveni and all this kind of stuff, one cannot understand, okay? You cannot understand, let me look for a picture that can use here. So you cannot understand Dr. Diana without looking into a gentleman known as Frank Tumwebaze. Because if you do not look into Frank Tumwebaze, then you cannot understand everything. This is why I call this show The Breakdown. Okay? Now, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who are watching, here is the shock. Okay, it's not a shocker. But here is this is how things are getting now very interesting. Now, according to the Observer, in 2000, which year is this? 2013. This was an interview between the Observer, a gentleman known as Simon Kasati. He was interviewing this gentleman known as Frank Tumwebaze. Now, they asked Frank Tumwebaze, you all know Frank Tumwebaze, I think he's the State Minister for Agriculture, blah, blah, blah. They asked him a very interesting question. How did you meet your wife? Frank says, I had this colleague at university studying medicine, whose sister came often to visit her. I got fond of the sister. She was smart. I made up my mind that this is the kind of lady I wanted to marry. And so in 2000, I proposed to her. Florence, as she was in year 1 at Makerere studying law. I had also developed interest to contest in my constituency. But she asked how I would pull off a wedding and why rush, which I tried to explain. Anyway, my first pledge was 1 million shillings from Mayombo. I went to Mienga Club where I found a plate of food cost 10k, and I decided that it would be the venue for the wedding. Soon after the wedding, I got a job. Are you thinking what I'm thinking? Soon after the wedding, I got a job with the Uganda Revenue Authority as the Assistant Revenue Officer. When I got the job, I was not comfortable. The money was good, but it was strict schedule that required you to do nothing else except to stamp away in the long room. Yet I was a radio activist and always attending rallies. I was also still mooting the idea to contest against Charles Yohanga in my area. I found this job untenable. My desire to contest leaked to the president, and I was invited and dissuaded from contesting since I had a job with URA. I made known to him my frustrations with the job, and then he offered me Deputy RDC, which I thought was a good idea. And so I was later made Deputy RDC Iganga, and that's where my political roots started. Now, let us go back to the article. I had this colleague at university studying medicine, whose sister came often to visit her. Now, the colleague that was studying medicine at the same time when this gentleman, Tumwebaze, was at the university, that colleague was none other than this lady known as the permanent secretary, Dr. Diana Atwiine. They were friends with Frank Tumwebaze. So when Frank Tumwebaze's wife, now wife known as Florence, who is a sister, to Dr. Diana Atwiine, of which both were adopted by the Museveni family under the guardianship of Janet Museveni. Frank Tumebaze managed to kotabira, to word the lady and tell her all sorts of sweet things, because Frank knew this would be a strategic person to fall in love with. And I've seen these marriages, either they are arranged or something. I've seen so many of these marriages from the West there. Very strategic. People are marrying off. You see Frank Tumebaze, nobody marrying, they get into these circles and the Museveni crime circles, and then they marry off someone who is a distant connection. And then all of a sudden you see Frank being elevated. He's getting a URA job. Afterwards, the information leaks that he wants to run against one of the NRM historicals in his constituency. Information leaks to Museveni. And we know that Florence was Museveni's daughter, like adopted daughter, who was under Janet. So what happened? Information leaked, and then this is what happened. So that is really interesting to me. So Frank Tumebaze, now we see that he is untouchable. He has been in a lot of scandals. He's a very arrogant guy. He's a very unlikable gentleman, but he's never fired from State House. Why? Because he is a Janet appointee, like he's under the protection of Janet Museveni, under the Museveni crime family. Now, why? Because he is married to one of the adopted daughters of the Museveni crime family, who is known as Florence. Florence, who is a sister to the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Health, Dr. Diana Atwiine. Now, as you see all these things happening, that is why you see right now it is very hard for you to get a contract. If you go for a contract in the Museveni crime family towards the Museveni's gang, you're most likely to miss out. But if you go through the Janet gang, that involves the Tumwebazes, the Audrey Kravogos, the children and all these other people, you are most likely to get that contract. That is why you see. And these things are very complicated, but I will try as much as I can to explain throughout the way. Now, do not be surprised. This is what you all remember this story about the recent contracts in oxygen, and why Diana Atwiine is giving out contracts and doing all this kind of stuff, flouting the PPDA procedures and all this kind of stuff. Now, the contract to supply oxygen plants to Mulago Specialized Hospital, a tune of 6.4 billion shillings, has turned out as a scam. The directors of Silverback's Pharmacy have failed to deliver them. It is well known that Silverback's Pharmacy is co-owned by the first son, Muhoozi Kainerugaba's wife, Charlotte Nankunda, and her sister, Ishta Asimwe Magunga, and a daughter to Sam Kutesa. We all understand Diana Atwiine grew up in State House and was educated on State House scholarship. Becoming the health PS, she was the director of the State House Medicine and Health Monitoring Unit. It is established that Museveni appointed Diana Atwiine for purposes of tapping into foreign funds by the World Health Organization and cracking other deals that benefit the family. So you get it. So Diana had to flout all these procedures and then award. And that's why you see she comes out to protect these sort of unprotectable things. So that is what is happening. Now, that's why you see that she's in charge of all these contracts and all this kind of stuff, which is earning the crime family a lot of money. Now, you can know that, of course, Silverbacks is owned by Muhoozi Kainerugaba, of which Muhoozi is married to Charlotte Ankunda, who are daughters of Sam Kutesa. So if the crime family says that give the contract to Muhoozi and the Charlotte, it's wealth within the family. So now, from that particular point, I was like, but they say these people are saying that Diana Atwiine has stolen money. No, Diana hasn't stolen money. That's why I was taking long to even come out and say things about this lady. Now, I was interesting. Can I have a look at her house or the car she drives or things of that sort? She comes out and claims that for her, she's always taking loans from Standard Chartered Bank. But, that loans, which is quite interesting. But anyway, on the salary of a permanent secretary, let us look. Now, the closest I've gotten to see Diana's house is this. This is an article when Museveni's personal doctor, Diana Atwiine, Atwiine's young brother, Tumwebaze succumbs to cancer. Now, this is in 2020. Diana unfortunately lost one of her brothers, known as Cedric Tumwebaze. President Museveni's personal doctor and PS, Diana Kanzira, Wednesday morning lost young brother Shadrach, age 34. Tumwebaze, who was a serving military officer under refugees, breathed his last on Wednesday at his home located along Chisasi Tinda Road in Tede Center, Kampala suburb, after a long battle with cancer. Now, Diana Atwiine at her home with the body. Now, this is Diana Atwiine's home. This is Mr. Tumwebaze's body. Now, our report on ground confirmed that the body is already at his elder sister Diana Atwiine's home in Chisasi, Kulambiro, Kampala suburb, for a vigil, from where it will be transferred tomorrow, Thursday, to their ancestral home in Chiruhura district for burial, which will be held on Friday. So that's Diana, and then that's the body. Now, that's the gentleman, but that's not the point. The point is here. This reporter learned also from impeccable sources that Diana will not bury her young brother because of the special duties, blah, 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 blah. But then, this is the house for Diana Atwiine. That's the house. 2020, by 2020, that's the house Dr. Diana Atwiine had. Men. In Chisasi. Now, I was thinking that maybe it's the husband that has the money, but you can't make this stuff up. Now, how long has Diana Atwiine been working to be able to afford, maybe the husband? But you guys can help me understand. Maybe it's a mortgage along the house. But whereas the story of the apartments might not be true, but man, you can't beat that. That's a very big house. I mean, that house could be close to $1 billion. If I try to look it up on Google Maps, I will bring it and show it to you here. I mean, she has a right to build a house that she wants, but man, she hasn't been in the job for quite long to be earning enough money to, build. Okay, man, but you know what I mean, right? Anyway, to sum it all up, this is what Museveni said recently of what they will be doing. Let us listen to this, and I hope it all makes sense for you to understand the Museveni crime family and their plans for the future.
My children, who are now senior adults, they are no longer children. They don't want me to say their age, but who are now senior adults, the timeliness of creating DRA, Descendants Resistance Army 1, to take forward the work of the original NRA of their parents. This fraternity recently recommended to me one of their group. When I talked to her about a certain job, her answer was, "No, Mzee, that is not my passion." As they speak in their exotic accent.
Now, that is a speech that was written for Museveni. He sounded funny, trying to be funny, but sorry. So that's a speech that was written for Museveni, and it is written. He was reading it verbatim, meaning that these things, they already have plans for them. And now, when you see people like Diana Atwiine taking over, and then introducing exotic extended people like the Tumwebazes, you see the Florences, and you should also understand there are so many other things I've not spoken about. Maybe I will make a part 2 about this, but this has been an introduction on who Diana Atwiine really is and what plans they have for her for the future. Now, you have had something known as the descendants of the NRA children, that these people, they are literally ready not to hand over to Ugandans, no, but to have the children of these former rebels to carry on what they have created, the corruption, the tribalism, the nepotism, and all this kind of stuff, so that they own, literally these people now, they want to own Uganda, but not Uganda owning them. So they own the country. You get it? They take all the contracts they do, and they even arrange marriages amongst themselves. So that is what we are seeing today. And that is just a brief introduction about the Museveni crime family. I've been looking into this gentleman known as Atwiine Kalugire as well. These are individuals that you won't see so much in the press, but they are doing something in the background that people need to know about. And please, always remember their names and remember their faces and call them out, because that's what they don't want. Whenever you call them out, trust me, that is why Diana Atwiine is all over the place, jumping like a headless chicken, looking on how to save her face and all this kind of stuff. But literally, Diana Atwiine, the way you got a job, you got it through corruption, nepotism, and tribalism. You were not recruited because you are one of the best to handle the office of the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Health. And the best thing for Diana Atwiine to do, if she wants Ugandans to like her once more or once again, I don't know if they have ever liked her, but she wants people to like her, is to resign because she does not suit to be in that office. She didn't get the office on the grounds of merit. And anything that you do not get truthfully, of course, things will come out to haunt you. She's a strong believer in Jesus Christ, and she's also a strong believer she says she's a born again. Now, I know so many friends of mine who claim to be born agains, and Museveni has always been hiring born agains. And we all know that Janet Museveni and the daughter, one of the daughter who is a pastor, they claim to be born agains. But surely, I think if these people are hiding behind the born, I think if they had thought that born agains are the ones that are going to turn things around, I think they have created a much bigger mess. And if you are hiring people on the premise that this one is a born again, this one is he's a DRA, this one is a NRA, this one is this one is that, and not on merit, you're just throwing away meritocracy and then using nepotism and tribalism, and because someone is coming from your family, Uganda is doomed. So ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you Dr. Kanzira Diana Atwiine. Thank you very much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, endeavor to subscribe, like, comment, and share with your friends. Sorry it's been a bit long, but I mean, she's a lady that is really worth every minute to know who she really is. Bye.